Silvi Guerra is a licensed clinical psychologist with a strong clinical background and expertise in providing evidence-based treatment of anxiety disorders and OCD in children and adults. She's been an associate at Bonnie Zucker Associates since 2018, the first to join, and also provides community talks to local schools and organizations to provide evidence-based support and practical skills for children and adults in each setting. And I will also add that you're bilingual and have given talks in both English and Spanish, which is an enormous resource. Dr. Silvi completed her postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins Hospital, a School of Medicine, and Kennedy Krieger Institute's Behavioral Management Clinic. She completed her predoctoral training at Lucille Packard's Children's Hospital at Stanford University and the Community Clinic at Children's Health Council, CHC. Dr. Silvi received her doctoral degree from Nova Southeastern University and her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Miami. And what's not on this paper is how warm and caring she is about all of her clients and so invested in helping them. And this is a talk that I've seen her give before, and I was taking notes and learning so much. And I thought the timing was really right on because so many kids are struggling with the winter or whatever month of COVID, and anything to build to make kids more efficient and more productive with consideration of their well-being. We cannot wait to hear. So welcome, Silvi, Dr. Silvi. We're so excited.
Thank you, Bonnie, for that introduction. I'm grateful. So today we'll be talking about these science-backed strategies to increase your well-being and build productive habits. Like Bonnie mentioned, hola, my name is Silvi.
Hola.
Hola. English is my second language, guys, so please bear with me if I make up idioms. This happens. Make up words. It's just one of the wonderful benefits of being bilingual. My family and I are Cuban, and I was raised in Puerto Rico and Miami. Today I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes and then leave time at the end for questions and discussion. And I'm really excited to share this information. I'm grateful to have been invited because I've been in this group for 2 years and the speakers have always been fantastic. So I want to continue on with that legacy, definitely. All right, guys, let's do this. So today's talk will give you tools to slay your learning and work environments for success. We're going to discuss growth mindset 2 and how to foster it in our kids, because this has been found to foster motivation and resilience, not only for ourselves, but for our little ones and not so little ones too. We're going to discuss the benefits of positive emotions, one of my favorite topics in the entire world, in particular gratitude and hope. I will share strategies that are mindful of our self-care, how to create these healthy habits, and how to make these habits stick, which is incredibly important too. All right, so first let's talk about productivity and also its arch nemesis, procrastination. Even in the best of times, productivity really seems to loom over our and our children's daily routines. In our practice, I've seen productivity and motivation to remain productive really impacted by the quarantine, by virtual schooling, and this is why I think it's really helpful to start us off here. So Pierce Steele, he's one of the world's foremost researchers and speakers on the science of motivation and procrastination, describes an equation that's really useful in understanding our procrastination tendencies. So I'll break down what motivation is just the willingness to do work, right? Which is essentially the opposite of procrastination. Then let's break down the equation by all the different elements. So expectancy refers to how much you expect to succeed by completing a task and getting the anticipated reward. So for example, the more you expect being successful, the less likely you're going to procrastinate. So value refers to how much you enjoy doing a task, how much you're going to enjoy the reward as well. The more value you derive from a task or a reward, the more likely you're going to get straight to work. Impulsiveness, it refers to our tendency to get distracted by other things. High impulsivity lures us to TikTok, Instagram, Minecraft, or Facebook instead of doing the work at hand. And delay refers to the time lapse until receiving the anticipated reward. So the longer the delay, the more likely you are to procrastinate because you figure it's something you can take care of later on. I hear this all the time in my practice. That paper's not due till Friday. I don't have to look at it until Thursday. Here's the goal after understanding this totally geeky equation. My goal is to help you maximize expectancy and value because they're directly proportional to motivation, and minimize impulsiveness and delay because they're inversely proportional. So next, let's go through actionable steps. I'm all about resources and hacks on how to use this equation to your advantage. In this presentation will also be available to you via PDF, so don't have to take too many notes. You'll have it as a reference if you'd like, okay? All right, let's talk about productivity hacks. The first productivity hack is to break down the steps. I'm sure we've heard this before with any task you need to do, whether it's a report for work or helping your children with their homework. Breaking it down into smaller steps will really increase expectancy because smaller tasks seem much easier to accomplish than a larger project. Everyone has a different sweet spot for this. I find it that being hyper specific with timelines is very helpful for me. For example, if I have a project like this presentation, I gave myself a daily goal to identify the topics I wanted to cover, pick the slide aesthetic, which Bonnie knows is exceptionally important to me, and then tackling one topic per day. This type of structure helps me, and you need to find the strategy and breakdown that really works for you and your kids as well. The second strategy is keep the task small. So the hardest part in getting work done is just starting, right? Just task initiation. One of my favorite work hacks that addresses this issue is the Pomodoro technique. So how the technique works is that you work for 25-minute blocks, each separated by a 5-minute break. And during each work block, you focus on just one small task. So this technique really increases our expectancy. So if I sit down to work and told myself, I need to work for 5 hours straight, I'm definitely going to get distracted right away. I'm going to avoid the task altogether. But if I told myself I just have to sit down and work for 25 minutes on this one thing, it becomes really less daunting and much easier for me to get started and also stay focused. There are great apps for this. There's the Pomodoro app. There's a really lovely one called 𝚜𝚌𝚒, F-L-O-R-A, where there's a little flower that grows for every 25 minutes that you're on task. But if you leave the task, the flower starts to die. So it's a really great way to, for those of us that are really into our plants, we got to keep that flower alive. All right. Additionally, if you have kids or for yourself as well, I really recommend brain breaks. Brain breaks are really quick activities that get our blood pumping, wake up our brains. These activities not only help support emotion regulation, but also regain focus during the school and work day. And I'm going to discuss brain breaks later in later slides as well and give you tons of different examples and visuals that you can be using. All right, so next, the third productivity hack is set the bar low, low, low. This is another trick to increase expectancy, again, in our equation. So set the goal to something less than what you're actually capable of. So I've used this recently with my own exercise practice. When I set myself to work out, 30 to 45 minutes every day, I only get around to do it, maybe once. And you know what, honestly, 0 times. I felt like I never had the chunk of time to dedicate to exercising, so I rarely did. Instead, I really lowered my expectations by aiming to exercise just 5 minutes every single day. By lowering the bar, I found myself exercising more and also able to exercise for longer, even though I set my goal for 5 minutes. I call this the 5-minute rule with my kids, especially those struggling with depression or behavioral activation. We do it for at least 5 minutes because action precedes more action, precedes more action. So this has been a really great strategy to get momentum going, okay? So let's talk about hacking pleasure from working or studying. Sometimes we have really unclear priorities or we don't have clarity regarding what we need to accomplish. These all point to experiencing very low value in the productivity equation. So increasing the value will help us overcome procrastination in these moments. So one way is by giving yourself a reward or for completing the task. So for example, you can reward yourself with a new recipe for dinner or hanging out with a friend. You can also, this also adds accountability. I like to call this accountability buddies because when your friend or your spouse expects you at 5 p.m. to do that Zoom video with your neighbors, or your friend expects you to grab coffee with them, you need to get the task done to show up. So this is also another way to really boost our productivity. In addition, a biohack that is used in behavioral therapy is to really be mindful of the way we're talking to ourselves and our children about their goals. So when we say, if I work on this presentation, then I can watch my favorite TV show, or if you don't clean your room, then you won't play your video games, you're subconsciously letting yourself and your child know that this is a choice, right? And it's also a potential threat. If you don't, then this is going to happen, right? But if you change the language to when, there is expectation and accountability involved, which really helps us engage more effectively. So when you go for a walk, then we can start dinner. When you put away your shoes, then we can start our family show. When you exercise for 5 minutes, then you get to call FaceTime your friend. So when then is a great strategy. And I hope that we switch up that language to help us with our productivity as well. Okay, so let's talk about Parkinson's law next. So the idea that you can complete a task at a later time can really crush even the most productive people. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allotted to it, meaning that if you only have 30 minutes of work to do, but you schedule in your schedule 2 hours to complete it, you'll end up spending the entire 2 hours working on that task. So this is where artificial deadlines really come into play. When you create an artificial deadline, it forces us to get work done much more efficiently. These artificial deadlines decrease delay in our motivation equation, therefore decreasing the likelihood of procrastination. So I recommend in particular, we not be too rigid with timelines, especially with kids and teens, because this can lead to unnecessary stress. With time, you get more accurate at gauging how long a task will take. I usually recommend to my coaching clients when we're working on executive functioning skills to time themselves completing everyday tasks. So, for example, how long does it actually take me to do the dishes? How long does it actually take me to put the laundry in, my bedtime routine, and so on? So that you're able to have an accurate account of the time investment rather than letting our minds really convince us, I don't have time for that. That's going to take up most of my afternoon. I'm not going to be able to do it. Instead, I know for a fact it takes 8.5 minutes to do that. So I definitely do have 8.5 minutes. We can all agree that one of the biggest productivity killers is distractions, right? And this is one of the power struggles that I see the most with the families that I work with. So avoiding distractions just through sheer willpower is really it's not helpful and it's not an effective strategy long term. Rather, I really recommend that you take a preventative approach. The first step is creating a work environment that really minimizes distractions. By doing this, we decrease impulsivity from our motivation equation. Some recommendations include declutter, right? Declutter your desk. A cluttered desk pulls at our attention constantly. And I find that it has this subconscious kind of shaming effect of, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that, and I'm not. Place your phone on airplane mode when you can, and you have to get on task. Computers have great options to put your computer on do not disturb, so you're not constantly getting those news reports or text messages, and those dings really do pull us. and use full screen to focus on just one task at a time instead of having a lot of tabs open, are also pulling us, right? Location is pretty tough right now in terms of options and limited space at home potentially. So ways to work around this are room dividers like the one I'm using right now, to create barriers when you don't have additional room or space. For kids, I really recommend the 3 poster board barriers that really create blocked off spaces for them to try and focus. And really, let's use tech to our advantage. There are great programs out there like Stay Focused and Freedom that will block distracting sites for you. Even if you try to go on Instagram or Facebook, it'll say, no, no, it's not time for that. It's time to work. And I've been scolded multiple times by this app, so know what that feels like. All right, guys. So let's talk about growth mindset next. Carol Dweck is a professor of psychology at Stanford and expert on motivation and mindset. And she explains that there are 2 different types of mentality and mindsets in young learners, fixed and growth mindset. So individuals who believe that their talents can be developed, for example, through hard work, good strategies, input from others, have a growth mindset. And studies show that these students really benefit from personal and academic advantages when compared to those with a fixed mindset. When you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your talents are innate gifts, right? I'm either good at math or I'm not. I'm either good at reading or I'm not, right? So growth mindset is that we understand that our brain can grow. It means that we understand we're not born good at something. None of us are just born being good at a particular subject or a sport. The truth is that with practice, we always get better at things. So not only that, but mistakes really help our brain grow. And we'll talk about neuroplasticity next, which is a really helpful concept to explain to our kids and also have in mind for ourselves. So when things feel really tough, we can always use the power of yet, which will be discussed later in the presentation as well. All right, let's learn a little bit about our brains first. So when I coach young clients or older clients as well, I always start by teaching them about their amazing brain. I describe that our brain is a supercomputer. It's in charge of everything we do, from walking to memorizing things to planning things out to playing sports. Our brain has neurons, and these are tiny cells that send messages to one another. And when you learn things, your brain sends messages from one neuron to the other. And when you do the same thing over and over and over, which is practice, it makes that connection between the neurons quicker and easier. And I describe this like it's paving a road. So at first that road might be rocky, but the more that you go on it, the easier it is to be on that road. It becomes this paved road. That means the more we try something out, at first it feels really hard and then becomes easier and easier over time. So I always explain to clients, you've already had this happen. I just want them to recognize that. Remember the first time you tried to ride a bike or you learned to swim, that felt so hard at first. You practice it, it got easier, and now it's like, no big, right? So what do we do when we feel stuck though? That's when we need the power of yet. So this is a great strategy. It's a really simple strategy to use as well. It's when we have a thought like, I don't get it, right? We're going to see that a lot, especially as our kids are going into a year of virtual schooling. I don't want to do this. I don't get it, or this doesn't work. We add the word yet to the sentence to help us come up with a solution, right? To make it an open-ended problem-solving prompt. I don't get it becomes, I don't get this yet. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this yet. I encourage you to share with your children and your lives, and also remind yourselves that words are incredibly powerful and we can change our brain with our words. So this is a poem that I think depicts it really nicely, the power of yet for our kids. I recommend my families have this poem printed out. They read it often because it really reminds us of not only growth mindset, but the power of yet. So this is Yet by Heidi Harrell. There are so many things you want to know, so many ways you want to grow. There's so many things you want to be, so many milestones you want to see. You will get there if you never forget the superpower of the word yet. When you first tried to talk, you were hard to understand. When you first tried to eat, you needed a hand. When you first tried to walk, you fell and fell. When you first tried to run, it didn't go well. But your baby self knew something we often forget, the superpower of the word yet. Somehow you knew that if you kept trying, your chances of success would keep multiplying. The same is true with every risk that you take. You just have to learn from every mistake. Where you put forth effort, the goal will be met as long as you remember the superpower of yet. All right. I find that charts like these are super helpful to support the cognitive reframe of those fixed mindset thoughts that we all have that can make us feel so stuck. So, for example, instead of saying, I'm not good at this, we change it to, I'm not good at this yet, but I will learn. This is too hard. Okay, this will require effort in finding the right strategy. I explain to kids it's okay for your brain to come up with kind of a fixed or stuck thought, or some. I know for some literature it's called rock brain versus, a more flexible brain. But it is in our control and power to change our brain with our words. So instead of I give up, it's hold up. I will succeed if I try and I find a better strategy. So having these charts around and helping our kids and ourselves reframe and change those words and sentences really matter in that neuroplasticity process of our brain as well. Okay, next let's talk about environment. That was mentioned in our productivity hacks when we discussed being very intentional with where we work. So clutter can sabotage the most efficient learners out there. And I also found that with more time spent at home during quarantine, had to get really creative with our spaces. So here are some examples of individual and dual desks for siblings working at home that can be made with like a bookshelf in the middle. Notice the reduce what I call visual noise, right? And distraction that clutter can produce. Bins that are labeled are helpful to maintain. Workspaces tidy. Having cork boards where you can have some of these visuals that we'll continue to discuss in the presentation is really helpful for schedules and things like that. Additionally, a sedentary day can really impact not only our focus, but motivation. So I included my own standing desk that I'm working off of today. That includes a small treadmill to increase movement throughout the day and help me with some physical activity as I work. And we will discuss alternative seating in later slides because I know that that's also a hot topic with my family. Oops. All right. So visuals can be so helpful to create structure and remind our children, teens, the expectations of the day. These are more for kiddos, younger kiddos. Here I've included some examples of signs that we can have placed in our workstations to highlight their tasks for the day. For example, what do I have to do? Listen to my teacher, raise my hand when I have a question, and giving my best effort. Because the virtual environment can be quite monotonous, I've encouraged and created with my families these creative strategies, such as a task treasure map for the day, with every box in the map indicating a behavior we want to see. For example, I showed up to class on time, check. I participated in class, check. I turned in my work, check. I completed my homework. This way kids can have a visual to track their productivity for the day, and parents can really increase motivation. Let's think back on our equation. We want to have pleasure out of the productivity. So if we offer a small reward or we make the treasure map contingent on their time with electronics after school, it's really helpful to keep kids engaged. It doesn't have to be a treasure map. I've done success ladders, right, where they go step by step. And once they're done with their ladder, they get a sticker for every part of their ladder. This is also helping them keep on track. Additional helpful visuals include a list of calming strategies when when a student's feeling overwhelmed and needing to get back on task, as well as this time tracker that indicates the classes or activities that it incur throughout the day to support time management skills as well. So all these can be found easily online, and you'll have them in your presentation as well. All right, let's come back to brain breaks. So these are, again, quick activities to get our blood pumping and wake up our brains. These activities not only help support emotion regulation, but also regain focus throughout the day. I love this visual. You can have a die at home and pick that for green. Whenever you roll a 2, you go to the green. So I spin around 5 times and I have a quick race around the kitchen. If I roll a 6, then I can do 10 cartwheels. Having options of things to do and being intentional with our breaks can help with maintenance of motivation, and also get some of that excess energy out from being sedentary throughout the virtual school day. Having these visuals available in our workstations really support taking the breaks. These are examples in both Spanish and English of other things that we can do: jumping jacks, stretch like a giraffe, get a comfy spot and relax your mind. And I recommend having an egg timer or any sort of timer to do these for at least 60 seconds. And we can also use it with siblings. So for example, we have a competition of how many jumping jacks we can get in 60 seconds, so that we can pull towards that competition and get them engaged with these brain breaks as well. All right, let's talk about alternative seating or dynamic seating. It's really hard to sit in a chair all day, especially for our young learners and those with difficulty with focus and motivation. A study in the American Journal of Occupational Therapy showed that the use of stability balls in the classroom increased levels of attention, decreased levels of hyperactivity, and increased time on task. Usually when I make this recommendation, my parents say, oh my gosh, they're going to start throwing this ball around, or they're going to be bouncing up and down. And I'm mindful of that concern, right? So we try other alternatives, like we have the bands in the bottom of the chairs that help with a little bit of movement, as well as other types of seating, as you can see here. But findings do show that teachers preferred stability balls over chairs. It provided additional evidence for that children even having an option of having multiple chairs to choose from really help them get through the day. So sometimes it's, in my morning classes, I'll start off with my band, or my afternoon classes, I'll do it in my stress ball, things like that. These seating options can really easily be found on websites such as funandfunction.com, which I really like because it breaks down products by diagnosis, actually, which I appreciate. And also Therapy Shop is a great resource for some of these products as well. So those links will be on there for you. Let's talk about habits. It can take, I know we've all heard it before, it can take an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. So these are a couple of different steps that we should be mindful of to make these habits stick. So first, we need to be intentional, right? Ask yourself, why is this important to me? I always ask my coaching clients to identify their why, because without knowing our why, we don't really feel attached to the outcome. Make the why very clear, put a Post-it note on your laptop to remind you of your goals. Ask your kids or let them know, we're trying this different type of seating so that your school day is easier, right? We're trying this new homework routine so that it's not as hard to do homework in the evenings together. So letting them know the intention behind it, rather than just giving them a habit and forcing them to do it over and over again, I think really helps them stick over time and increases their own motivation to engage. Second, we want to create a routine somehow. So we schedules really create a better sense of control and consistency for us in our lives, especially our kids, and consistency helps us feel safe. So make sure your schedule is one that really truly works for your life and your family. I talk to my families about your family culture, right? Some families are more go with the flow families. Some families are going to be more structured families. So don't create a routine that fits another family and not yours, right? For my more go with the flow families, maybe we have a choice jar of the things that we do that day. For my more structured families, then we can have a little bit more in terms of the schedules. It's important to set realistic goals so that it's easier to stay on track and stay motivated. It's helpful to routinely ask yourself and to talk as a family, what is this particular habit adding to our lives, right? We have to acknowledge its value in order to increase motivation. Let's think back on that formula and what is this adding to my life? Like, why is this helpful? I notice that when I exercise more, I'm sleeping better. That's the value. I like sleeping better because I wake up in a better mood, and that's going to help me keep coming back to it. Okay. Reminders are our friends, and gosh, technology for the win on this one, right? We have phone timers. I'm going to whisper, Alexa, because I don't want her to wake up. We have Google Home. We have other things that we can continue to have these, like, we program it, we set routines, and we forget it. It becomes passive, right? So my clients at certain points of the day, they have, okay, this is your mindful minute. Let's do like a mindfulness meditation on, one of your apps, or this is time to start making lunch, or this is time to go for a walk. Having those set it and forget it reminders are really helpful to make habits stick. And lastly, tracking your progress. Tracking has been found to really increase habit engagement. There's something to seeing your engagement streaks on a calendar or digital habit tracker to make you feel proud and motivated to keep going. A great example of this skill, and those who know me really well know that I'm a super comedy geek. And Jerry Seinfeld has been known to, he doesn't go a day, he says, in years, he hasn't gone a day without writing a joke. And he doesn't want to lose his streak. So that's something of a personal motivator that he has. He has notebooks upon notebooks and notebooks, but he doesn't want to lose his streak. And he attributes a lot of his success to this consistent practice and engagement. So let's talk habit trackers. Great ways to track your habits include paper trackers like this one. You can pick the month, the habit that you want to track. You can track it by putting stickers, by putting a check mark, a star, whatever you need. And also, again, technology for the win. These are great apps that help us track our habits. Productive Habit Tracker. This one helps you track your successes, meaning you'll be able to measure your continuing improvement and stay motivated over time. Habit Share, it blends social networking with habit tracking. So this one is a great use of accountability buddies again, right? I know that my friend can see that I broke that streak today, and I don't want that. So we are gonna keep each other motivated that way. So that's Habit Share. And then Streaks is great because it encourages you to start small. So let's keep a 7-day streak this week, or let's do a 3-day streak and then build on that over time to stay motivated. So that's a really great gradual approach. Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about positive emotions. Again, one of my favorite topics. I have a background in studying resilience and happiness in grad school. So this is something that I always like to incorporate into our practice and the treatment approach and coaching that I do. So first, positive emotions, and in particular, 2 positive emotions are kind of the Mac Daddies of it, are gratitude and hope. They've been found to be incredibly motivating and powerful, not only to our life satisfaction, but to our reduction of mental health difficulties and benefits to our physical health as well. So gratitude is this thankful appreciation for what you receive. It can be tangible in gifts or intangible. With gratitude, you acknowledge the things that are working in your life, right? And as a result, it helps us connect to something bigger than ourselves, whether it's other people, nature, a higher power. I found that it's a great way to battle mental filtering when our brain can only our brain is built for survival, right? It's constantly scanning the room and looking for what's not working. Gratitude is a great antidote for that. So let's talk benefits of improving gratitude in our lives. It opens the door to more relationships. It improves physical health. So people with higher gratitude have less appointments with their medical doctors, they've found over time. It improves our psychological health and enhances empathy and reduces aggression in both children and adults. Grateful people sleep better. We were talking earlier about sleep hygiene, which is a very hot topic during quarantine, and it also improves our self-esteem. So thinking back on what we were talking about in terms of growth mindset, gratitude is something you build over time. You're not born with all this gratitude and propensity to look for gratitude in your life. You build it. So 2 activities that I like to teach my clients are 3 good things, and then one that I created by seeing kind of the struggles that my families were having with looking for gratitude in their lives. I call the gratitude train. So 3 good things is a really simple strategy. It's on a daily basis or as consistently as we can. We share with one another. For some families, I like pairing this to bedtime. So what were 3 things that went well today? Sometimes the word gratitude can feel really big to kids. It's just things that you liked, things that went well today. And highlighting those things really helps with that mental filter of the day. Instead of feeling like, oh, today sucked. I just had virtual schooling and that was it. It was the same as yesterday. Actually, what are some things you liked? I liked it that my brother helped me out with that. I liked it that we got dessert with dinner today, or I liked it when we went on the walk. We saw that really cute dog. So 3 good things has been found to be incredibly protective and builds gratitude over time. So let me explain gratitude train. So this one I created because the families and individuals that I was working with sometimes were having a tough time. They feel like gratitude needs to be really big things, right? So instead, I wanted them to think of what's a small thing that brings you a lot of joy or that you appreciate. So for myself is the cup of coffee in the morning, and I'm lucky if I get to do Starbucks, right, Bonnie? Starbucks for the win. So my cup of coffee, I want you to then think what needed to happen for that cup of coffee to be in your hands, right? So for example, this cup of coffee is in my hands because I was able to go to my favorite, Trader Joe's, and it was available on the shelf there. Go further with the train. What needed to happen for that coffee to be on the shelf? I'm grateful that the amazingly lovely and friendly staff at Trader Joe's showed up to work and they put those coffee beans on the shelf for me to have. What needed to happen further, right? And also, I have a job and I can afford the coffee, right? Go further than that. What needed to happen for that coffee to get to Trader Joe's? I'm grateful for the truck driver that showed up to work, that sacrifices time with their family, that brought it from the farm to Trader Joe's. Go further. What needed to happen then? Okay, I'm grateful for the farmers that show up every day, that work our crops and give us these products that give us life sometimes, right? Go further. I'm grateful for the weather that needed to happen. The sun needed to be out. The crops needed to be healthy in order for these coffee beans to happen, right? So I find this strategy to be a really helpful way to expand on gratitude. And I notice that we start seeing things a little bit differently, where small things, a lot needed to conspire to have that small thing that you liked in the day. So it expands our mind. And again, very protective of the mental filtering that can happen easily. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving forward. Hope. So hope is a desire with a belief that something will happen. So when we want something and we believe it'll happen, this is how hope comes about, right? A lot of benefits to hope. Hope reduces physical pain. Studies have shown that it reduces physical pain. It can boost our circulation and respiration, which is quite relevant to the times we're living in when we're thinking about our immune system consistently. Optimism really improves our cardiovascular health as well. So I like to think about it as vitamin C, zinc, and hope, right? Those are the things that we should be kind of like in our our medicine cabinets. That's an English term, yeah, medicine cabinet. Okay, so how do we increase hope? So a great evidence-based strategy to increase hope is called the best possible selves activity. I do this with kids, with teens, with adults, and it's really simple. So I ask them, imagine yourself in the future, everything turned out as well as possible. And on a piece of paper, kids can draw it, or you can type it up, write it out. What does that look like? And I say, be super specific. Imagine everything that you would want to be like, right? Things that you'll accomplish, places that you'll go, what kind of clothes will you wear, what kind of music will you like, what kind of friends will you have. Be as creative and imaginative as you want. And this really brings up in their mind not only the visualization of the things that they want, but it becomes more possible because now they have something to tack onto, right? So I encourage doing this by season sometimes with my families, right? We're about to start this new season. What's our best possible selves for the spring, right? What's our best possible selves for the summer? What's our best possible selves for 2021? And have that as visuals and markers. If it's drawings, we have them up at home. It's like, yeah, that person's rocking their schoolwork. They maybe wanted to try out for the soccer team. What do we have to do to then make that happen? So best possible selves is a really great activity to find these markers of hope and continue to grow hope throughout the year, really. Okay, let's talk about self-care. Gosh, this is quite the buzzword, and we're constantly striving for more of this. Some steps for self-care that I've found really helpful include building a community of support. Quarantine has increased our feelings of isolation, and I've found beautiful things happen again with technology, people connecting with one another through Facebook groups, through meetup.com to find other like-minded people. There are groups for true crime enthusiasts, and they meet virtually once a month on a book, or there are hiking groups that go out and physically distance hikes out there. So find a community of support so that you feel much more integrated into our community and also feel like I have people that I can count on, not only based on my interests, but on the things that I need over time. For my most ambitious and productive clients, one of the main messages is delegate, 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 right? We want to take everything on. And I know that now, our pods might be a little bit smaller, but let's get creative with delegation. Some of my families I've encouraged to, they have science-minded grandparents, and every Thursday they meet with their grandparent in Texas that does like their science homework or helps them with their with that particular subject, or the reading assignment might not be something that the parents have a lot of experience with, so their aunt in New York is in charge of the reading homework and things like that. So let's get creative with delegating out tasks so that we're not taking everything on, especially when our cup might feel a little empty. Restorative activities. We'll talk a little bit about self-care next and what kinds of area of self-care we should be mindful of. And then physical activity, we can't get away from this, right? Movement is going to be something that is an important part of our health and having a healthful balance. Um, I I encourage people to think about physical activity in a different way. Myself, I'm incredibly intimidated by the gym or thinking that physical activity is just, the Peloton bike or weights or anything like that. This is just movement, right? If I take my call while I'm walking around my home or walking outside, that's movement. If I do a dance party with my kids, that's movement. If I do bedtime yoga before bedtime with my kids, that's movement. So just think about movement in a different way so that it can break that hold of like, well, I'm not able to go to the gym right now, so I can't move at all. And that's not really the case. Okay, so being flexible around this, I think, is helpful. Okay, I'm mindful that this might be a little bit hard to read. Again, if you want the PDF, just let us know and we'll send you the PDF, and that will be easier to zoom in on. When we think about self-care, we usually think about our physical self-care, right? I'm sleeping enough, I'm eating, and I'm getting exercise. However, research shows that there's multiple areas of self-care that we should be mindful of. For example, our psychological self-care has to do with our self-reflection. Am I seeking out therapy if I need that? Am I being able to relax throughout the day? Am I joining a support group if I need to do that? Then there's our emotional self-care. This is where I might need boosts in terms of my self-love, positive self-affirmations, or, talking to myself in a more positive way. Spiritual self-care, I notice this is one that people usually don't really think of. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with a religious organization, anything like that. It's more about what are activities that bring me peace and what can I do? So, for example, going out into nature, find incredibly peaceful, or how can I be inspired? Things like that. Our personal self care, figuring out who you are. What are your short and long term goals? What are some things that I want to accomplish in my life? And am I caring for that? And then our professional self care. This is the one that I see most go by the wayside with my amazing colleagues. Am I taking time off for lunch? Like, do I have a break in the day? Do I know when to say no when something doesn't really fit into my work schedule and what I need to do? So, my challenge for you is take a look at the self care wheel and rank it and see where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10. 10, you're rocking it, right? I'm totally mindful of this. This is part of my life and my routine. 1, it's like, what's professional self care, right? So, your low numbers, maybe make a challenge for that, right? See what activities I can incorporate into my life in order to boost up my self care in that area that I might have lower numbers in. This is a self-care challenge that I wanted to share as an example for you guys. This is something that you can do as a family, as a practice with your colleagues. Have one small goal a day of engaging in some sort of self-care. The first day, I'm going to wear something I love. The 5th day, I'm going to go for a walk during lunch. 10th day, I'm going to appreciate my body somehow. The 12th day, I'm going to go to bed early. So giving yourself challenges, this is a really great way not only to create habits, right? Because you want to maintain your streak, coming back to some of those habit tracking goals, but it also gives you kind of a sense of competitiveness of like, I got this. Okay, I'm going to do this for 5 days straight. So challenges are great. And here are some examples of self-care activities for families based on all the different areas we discussed. So for physical self-care, let's have a dance party or go roller skating. For practical self-care, let's clean up, let's declutter our toys, let's maybe make those bins for our workstations. Or for our mental self-care, let's draw or write stories, or maybe let's do our best possible selves activity as part of our mental self-care for our families. All right, guys. So as you can tell, resources are my jam. I love giving out resources. I wish I could be a coach in everybody's pocket. These are 3 great apps that at our practice we consistently recommend. The first one, and these are all free. The first one is Insight Timer that has great guided practices, relaxation skills. Of note, we love Tom Evans. His voice is like butter, as we like to say. He has a guided relaxation called Be Calm. That's really helpful. And also Nothing Here But You by Muji. But they have great other programs. They have sleep programs, stories for bedtime, anti-stress. There are some SOS kind of managing stress guided relaxations as well. Smiling Mind is a great free app, and its main goal is to teach us mindfulness skills. And they have programs that I appreciate are by ages. So they have for young children, they have programs for teens, they have programs for adults, and it helps you with guided practices. They have mindfulness when you're doing sports, mindfulness when you're doing homework. What are some strategies that I can do in order to focus more on the work that I have at hand? Of note, the Thrive Inside program was developed for families in quarantine to help manage some of those big emotions and frustrations that come up. And also, I usually recommend the sleep program for adults and kids. And then Anti-Stress is a really cool little app that has fun activities that you can engage in to kind of disconnect your brain a little bit and come back and focus on task. It's not too distracting, right? It's not full on Fortnite or Minecraft, but it's these little activities that kind of give us a little mental break, and then we can come back to it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention. Again, I'm so grateful to be here. Now I'm going to be taking questions and any discussions. Let me know.